Hi, everyone. Welcome to Immune for Life or Alternavita. Still haven't nailed down my name yet, but at least for this channel and my Facebook page, it will be Immune for Life. So I thought today, since I'm still in transition, let me just get my screen up here, that I would go back to the beginnings a little bit and cover SIBO a little bit and tell you about my story a little bit because I know maybe that's something that you could possibly relate to. So, January 2nd, 2016, that was the day that changed my life. And when I began my colostrum MAF journey back to health. Previously, I had discovered Dr. Mark Pimentel from Cedars-Sinai and realized I probably had the worst type of SIBO, which is H2S SIBO. And up until that point, I had been taking SIBO recipe, which was like a miracle. Within 2 weeks, I was off the couch. And that's when I turned away from infectious disease theory and moved on to colostrum, Bravo yogurt, MAF, GCMAF. And since that time, I have never looked back. So up until that point, there were still a lot of what I'll call diehards for infectious disease theory, and this is what's making you sick, and that's what's making you sick, and yada, yada, yada. But what finally put the nail in the coffin for me was that there had been some very innovative and new class of antibiotics that were made available. And what these antibiotics were capable of doing was quite remarkable in that they could effectively disable or disengage every type of organism known to be harmful to you as a human. So, long story short, if time were a ruler, this would include every organism past about the quarter-inch mark, if time were a ruler, and that would be every organism from about that point until today. So that pretty much includes all of them. And these class of antibiotics were completely safe. And the way they disabled an organism was, and this was, they were antibacterial, antifungal, antiparasitic, antiviral, and antitumoral. So essentially, what this class of antibiotics would do is render an organism incapable of either replicating or creating energy. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there would be no reaction, there would be no mutation, there would be nothing. The organism simply would just cease to exist with no harm to you. So, there's some of the natural types of these types of biotics are turmeric, cinnamon, berberine, and there's another one I can't quite remember. Anyway, that was the point at which infectious disease theory died, and that is the point I never looked back to an infectious cause of my particular condition. So, okay, let's start out with my particular condition, which in my case began at birth because I was 2 months premature and I was not breastfed. Um, I don't hold that against anyone. It just happened to be how things went. And um, I'm going to say that I just turned 63. So I was quite lucky that I even survived at all in that day and age, because I weighed about 2 pounds, and I'm just quite lucky I even survived. So that was the story of my beginnings. But the story certainly didn't end there because that had quite a major impact on my health and the rest of my life. So by 2016, I was this child with a condition known as SAM. And I'm going to go back over that with you, that the WHO statements in the 2017 Millennium Goal, breastfeeding, and they are in hierarchical order. Food security and water security are major protective factors against malnutrition and critical factors in the maturation of healthy gut microbiota, characterized by a transient bifido bloom before a global rise in anaerobes. This is when you're born, you get your bifido from your mother, and then you have that as a major colonizer for a specific amount of time, and then you go on to develop healthy, mature, anaerobic gut microbiota. When this does not happen, your gut is not properly developed, and it is associated with severe acute malnutrition. It leads to deficient energy harvest, vitamin biosynthesis, and immune protection. And it's associated with diarrheal conditions, malabsorption, and systemic invasion of pathogens. A therapeutic diet and infection treatment may be unable to restore bifido and healthy, mature gut microbiota. And we know today that those things will not work to restore the gut microbiota because a child needs colostrum, and then a child needs mother's mammal milk for a specific amount of time. So the father of the microbiome discovered that malnourished children's microbiota failed to follow the healthy pattern that they identified in healthy children. Their microbiota of these malnourished children was immature, lagging behind in development behind that of their healthy peers, and supplementing these children's meals with widely used therapeutic foods increase calories and nutrient density and reduces deaths from malnutrition, but it does not fix their persistent microbiota immaturity. And perhaps more insidious than slowing growth is malnutrition's effect on impaired brain development, and dysfunctional immunity, which follow these children throughout their lives. And I forgot to say last time that these were twin studies. And twin studies are some of the most reliable. Twins are some of the most reliable subjects when it comes to research because you can really nail down if something is affecting one and perhaps not affecting the other, and then they are good subjects for, what's the word? What's the word they use when it's elegant studies. So they are one of the most reliable methods for determining your hypothesis. So I'm going to go back here because so many people do not get this. And what happens is that you have deficient energy harvest. That's your ability to create energy, or vitamin synthesis, your ability to extract nutrients from food, and then, of course, immune protection and preventing dysregulated immune systems and dysfunctional immunity. So it's very important to get this fundamental here that even though these unhealthy children were given highly nutrient dense food and nutrient and high fiber foods, it did not work to restore their microbiota to the level of their healthy peers, which was the other twin. And fundamentally, the reason for that is because it's not just you eating and then you just digest food and then all of these vitamins and what would the word be? Nutrients get to where they should be and help you in your mitochondria and all of that. It is that your microbiota plays a huge role in that, a major role in that. So they are termed major protective factors and critical factors in the maturation of the healthy gut microbiota. So it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. What came first? Well, the chicken comes first. And in this case, for you to be healthy throughout life, up until my current age, a mammal needs to be breastfed. And it's that simple. You have not evolved and you have not adapted from that necessity. And I'm just going to use a calf as an example. If a calf won't nurse, they probably are better off just putting that calf down because they can never be, then they won't survive long enough. They'll always be sickly. They won't grow well. They can't be put out to pasture because you can't put a sickly animal out into the environment, and they never thrive. And unfortunately, it's just better off probably to put them down. And that's why farmers do everything possible to get calves that won't nurse or can't nurse, get them nursed because there's virtually almost no saving them without it. So you aren't much different. So in my case, of course, the problems began to happen in childhood, and I had some food intolerances. I Food never really made me feel better. Or even though I looked healthy as a toddler and I obviously survived and all of that, I did begin to have problems in childhood. And these problems only got worse when I became a teenager, and then they got worse when I became a young adult, and they got even worse when I approached the state here of 2016. By that time, I had had severe gut pain for 26 years. And by severe, I mean I would wake up in the morning and it would be fine. But with my first cup of coffee, and then throughout the day, it would just get worse with everything I ate. And I used to describe it as feeling like I was being gutted like a fish. So by bedtime, my gut would be severely inflamed. I would be in severe pain. I had severe bloating. And that was something that began in my early 20s, and it did not end until I began my natural oral immune therapy treatments. So then I went on to develop one condition after another, which the list is so long I can't even remember them all at this point. But the common ones, IBS, um, fibromyalgia, sepsis, um, numerous infections, ear infections, nasal infections, chronic fatigue, mono. I can't even remember them all. But suffice it to say that by this point, I was reaching the point where there was almost no hope for me, and I was either going to end up in a wheelchair or die. And prior to 2016, I had lost my vision. I was blind for a year in one eye from optic neuritis. I got diagnosed with my autoimmune condition. I had a lesion. I did try the injection drugs. They were terrible. They did not help at all. They made things worse. But I'm not quite sure what year it was, but I had developed a lesion on my brainstem. And if it had grown any larger, I could literally just drop dead because it would affect my nervous system and my heart would just simply stop beating and I could literally drop dead at any minute if that particular lesion had gotten any bigger. So, needless to say, I was in a pretty precarious position. Not to mention, I had spent probably close to $100,000 on various treatments. I used to have a photo of all the supplements that were on just a part of the supplements that I had wasted money on, and it covered my entire dining room table, and that wasn't even all of them. Some of them were in boxes in other cupboards and rooms. So at that point, I was pretty much hopeless and didn't know which way to turn. all I knew was that infectious disease theory was dead for me, and I was not looking back. And luckily for me, GCMAF and MAF and the researchers in Japan were having some success with conditions like mine, and they had gotten a man out of a wheelchair that had been in a wheelchair for 4 years. And to me, that was pretty remarkable because that was what I feared most, was facing, of course, death and facing being permanently unable to walk. So that was when I started, and I am going to end this hopefully with some hope for you. That I know that it's hard to stick with it, but if you will note that my timeline almost mirrors the optimum breastfeeding time for an infant. And for me, that was about 18 months. So I began with SIBO recipe. And when I got off the couch, I knew I was on the right path. And I would just like to say here, none of these are my theories. None of this is my research. I just happened to get very lucky and find the brightest minds on the planet. And what I am good at is putting all of this disparate information together in a coherent way to explain to you that this is something that probably didn't just start yesterday, is it didn't just start 2 years prior to 2016 for me. It was something that began so far back I couldn't even remember everything that I may have noticed that I was different from other children or what have you. So that is most likely the case with most people. You just can't remember everything and you can't put everything together. So, so none of this is mine. I am just putting together for you everything I've learned from all of these masters, master researchers, master doctors, master scientists, and put it together in a coherent way. So, okay, let me go back to 2016. And as I said, by that point, I had been suffering quite a lot for 26 years. But within 4 to 6 months, I was amazed at how much I had improved. But by 2018, maybe it was, okay, January 2016, January 2017 was 12 months. So it was by August of 2017, yes. So it wasn't even 2 years, it was like 18 months that I could walk for miles. I did not get tired. And that's part of it. Okay. The gut healing is just the first part because then you begin to synthesize your vitamins properly. You begin to restore your mitochondria. You begin to repair your RNA and your DNA. And all of this accumulated damage that you have built up over however many years. Healing the gut is just the first part, and that is what is going to allow you to begin to heal. And then it's going to take however long it takes after that. And for me, it was about 18 months when I felt like an entirely new person. I could walk. I could walk for miles. Um, I could walk in sand for miles. And if you know someone with my condition, walking in sand would have been, I would have been lucky if I could have made it 100 feet. But I could walk for miles and I didn't get tired. There was no more chronic fatigue. Um, I looked great. I felt great. I slept great. For the first time in years, I didn't have insomnia. And that was something that began to change almost immediately. My lifelong insomnia was gone. Um, my food, I had eliminated so many foods by that point. I was at the point where the only thing I could possibly digest was rice and bananas and applesauce and maybe chicken. And that was a big mistake too, because more elimination results in more elimination. Don't do that. When you eliminate something, you quit making the enzymes to digest it. I began to add foods back. I could eat bread. I could eat corn. I could eat everything that had begun giving me problems with no problems. Not that some foods aren't problematic in and of themselves, namely processed foods and sugar. But for the first time in decades, I could eat without pain. I was overjoyed, and I'm still overjoyed. So I'm just sharing this with you to give you a bit of hope. If I can do it, anybody can do it. Yes, it does get tiring. Now, what year are we? I'm almost 10 years, 10 years in almost, and taking the same thing every day for 10 years. Where now I'm at the point where I have to have it at least 2 or 3 times a week. But that was every day for 2 years. And I began to have so much improvements that I just simply didn't want to quit. For the first time ever, I was healing. So I did not want to quit. But I know when you get to a certain point, everything becomes a little bit drudgery. And you just, if you get out of the habit, it's easy to get out of a habit. And then it's very hard to get back in the habit. But I would just implore you to stick with it because that's what people do. They start maybe a month in. If they make it a month, I'm usually amazed if they make it a month. But they start and then they feel great and then they quit. And then when things weren't finished healing and then they revert back to where they were, trust me, any malnutrition, anytime you eat poorly, anytime you don't get what you need, you're going to be in big trouble in about 3 to 4 months. And you could have had everything under the sun optimally, and you're still going to be in trouble in about 3 to 4 months because malnutrition is a serious issue. But they start, they quit, they feel good, they quit, they revert back to where they were, or maybe not quite as bad, and then they say, oh, it didn't work. Well, it didn't work because you didn't stick with it long enough. And I'm sorry that it takes that amount of time, but if you're like me, you're not going to undo 40, 30 plus years of damage overnight. And I'm talking arthritis type symptoms. I'm talking stiffness. I'm talking weakness. I'm talking scar tissue. I'm talking very real damage to my body. And by 18 months to 24 months, it was gone. And I'm sorry it does take that long. But again, you are not going to undo decades of damage in 5 minutes. And that's just the way it is, even with the best supplement on earth, which is bovine colostrum, because as I've said many times, it's a living substance. And going back to the calves, we are very lucky that we have access to this living substance because it's because of the ranchers and the farmers who would not stand for their losing their animals without it, because it cannot be replaced. It has never been replaced, and it will likely never be replaced. So, just as the colostrum from your mother will likely never be replaced, and the breast milk will never be replaced. I know people don't like to hear that. Tough cookie. That's just the way it is. You're a mammal, and you're no different from any other mammal, and to date, you have not evolved or adapted out of the necessity of needing breast milk and colostrum. And thank God there are some people on the planet who will not let you start life without it. Okay? And I really don't care what people think. What I do care about is that no child ends up living the life that I had to lead. That's what I care about. Because I'm going to tell you, I spent many, many, many years being unable to function, having to stay in bed, not being able to walk, almost dying, losing my eyesight. God forbid I could have lost, I don't know how many inches of intestine if it had gotten much worse. Surgeries, I could have a colostomy bag. All kinds of things could have went wrong for me. So that is what I care about, is preventing those kind of outcomes in children so that they never have to suffer as I did. So fundamentally, when someone tells you, oh, you're malnourished, you just have to eat better, you just have to take vitamins, I want you to remember that no, 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 and no. Your vitamin biosynthesis, your ability to restore and replace mitochondria, your ability to heal, your ability to extract nutrients, all of that is because of a healthy microbiota and proper microbiota development. And it's not the reverse, that you just have to eat better, you just have to take vitamins, because trust me, if it was just that, I should have been an Olympian if it was just that. No, it is not just that. It is one thing comes before the other, and what comes before B is A. And A is proper microbiota development. So if you didn't get it, you just take the next best thing on the planet and you rebuild your gut and you restore your health just like I did. And that is what Immune for Life is all about. And trust me, when I began to, every month I was overjoyed at another new milestone that I had reached. So I could have kept it all to myself. That would have been very easy. But I knew other people who were just as bad as me, if not worse. I felt an obligation to share that with people. I felt an obligation to the researchers and the doctors that helped me because they were so diligent and so had so much integrity of wanting to really truly help people. And I felt obligated to help tell their story, and as well as sharing my own, because the numbers at that point were unbelievable to me. By 2005, 90% of children in the United States were not being breastfed. 60 it's either 40 or 60% in Africa were not being breastfed. Trust me, those children in Africa and other countries cannot afford this. The children in the United States can't even afford it. Children in Africa who might be affected by the second and third hierarchical value of food insecurity and water poor sanitation, they would not make it past age 10. Just having one of these things on this list is bad enough. But if you had all three, you would virtually have no hope at surviving to even be a teenager. And that those children are dying every single day. So, in the end, whether you believe it or not, it's just these fundamental things that are foundational, and they prevent up to 90% of chronic conditions can be eliminated if people just understood fundamentals and foundational health and worked to ensure that people know about it and that people get it. It's that simple. And that is why I did what I did, and that's why I'm here today. So, okay, everyone, that's the beginning, and then you've already heard the sad end of Alternavita. And by the way, just what I said about infectious disease, it's absolutely true. And trust me, by then I had honed my research skills to a very high degree. And if there had even been one iota of a chance that what was affecting me was an infection, I would have found it. Trust me. So that's the beginning, and I'm glad I never looked back, and I never will look back. But I do understand that since this is something I never got, and just in general, nobody can go 3 to 4 months without a healthy gut before they will begin suffering from malnutrition syndromes. And I just am, what's the word? I just accept it. This is just something I will have to maintain at least 2 or 3 times a week for the rest of my life. And if I falter and I fall off the wagon, I will be not starting over again, but I will definitely be having to do this every day until I get back to where I feel I should be for my age. So, okay, everyone. And by the way, the founder of the colostrum, that my favorite brand, I believe he's probably at least 90 years old now, and he still walks every day. And I am quite sure that he also would not be without it every single day of his life. So, okay, everyone, thanks so much for your time. And I truly hope sharing my story, just a small portion of my story, will inspire you to get on the program and stick with it if you already know about it. and just steel yourself to accept that this is something you're going to do for the rest of your life. Okay, everyone, thanks for your time. I'll see you next time. You have a great day and a great weekend. Bye.